Hello, everyone. It's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer. Welcome to the Development Hell podcast. The movie club is back at it again in its entirety. And we're here to talk about Lilo and Stitch, which is 20 years old. My God.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So this
We're
is
old.
Feeling old yet?
Disney animation. So this is our first animated film. So taking things very differently from last time when we did Throne of Blood, which was a Japanese Macbeth adaptation in black and white. And much more different than what we're going to do next, which is Ordinary People next month for our Oscars show. So a lot less sad. So we have Lilo and Stitch. This was Joe's pick because I feel like Joe is probably our resident animation enthusiast. So let's do our thing and go around and first ask, is Stitch coming to Applebee's with us?
Stitch go to Applebee's. Stitch have to go on ship.
So Matt, is Stitch
That was
coming to Applebee's?
That was pretty perfect, actually.
I don't know.
And
if
like
we want to
initially,
bring
like
Stitch
your box didn't like turn green, so I was like, "Who's doing that?"
So I vote that we get a Marcellus Wallace to come to Applebee's with us, who made a cameo in this movie. Because, you know.
And Marcellus Wallace meets Agent K, I guess.
Yes.
AKA the only social worker you'll never ever get to see in your life.
Yeah, social workers don't wear suits.
That's what I'm saying. I'm watching this. I'm like, you know what it is, though? And I'll probably talk about this, what we're talking about is that because the movie really wraps itself on what a kid is imagining the world to be like, to me, for the child to imagine what child protective services would look like, it actually does make sense for a child to imagine, a scary entity like that being like that, but we'll talk more about that later.
Which also, now I want Ving Rhames in a Men in Black movie.
100%.
Immediately.
Or Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, because apparently he's one of the original Guardians.
There you go. But Joe, so starting off with you as we go around for our general thoughts on Lilo and Stitch. So Joe, what are your general thoughts on Lilo and Stitch?
So I guess by talking my general thoughts about this movie, I think it kind of has to go as to why I chose this movie to begin with. One, it's the 10-year mark too, but compared to the movie that you guys were watching, sorry I wasn't able to join in on that episode, but compared to that, I figured it'd be a nice palate cleanse. But to me, why I chose this movie, when it does something that's really good, I feel like it's very commendable. Like, there are areas in this movie where it's not perfect. I mean, it came in at a time when Disney was kind of like hit or miss with their animated movies, but there's something about this movie when it comes to dealing with loss and trauma and like basically trying to make ends work that to me really embodies, like, the basic name of the movie is Lilo and Stitch. Lilo apparently means lost in I guess Hawaiian. Oh. And then Stitch is putting together. So the movie is literally about being broken and being bound back together, which really captures the essence of this movie. Nice. Like I said, some things in this, it's the typical Disney tropes and formulas, but then other aspects when it talks about trauma, when it talks about childhood grief, and like just kids just trying to make sense of like really unfortunate life situations. I think it's a great movie. It's not just for children to enjoy. They'll enjoy the alien stuff, but adults can really get something and even learn something out of this movie. Anyways, that's my general thoughts.
Bam.
Next.
Yeah. What about you, Matt?
Lilo can come to Applebee's. Stitch has to wait in the car. I mean, with the window, cracked. I'm not a monster, obviously.
Well, to be fair, I don't think you can have a car left when you come back.
Yeah, right.
But to be fair, Stitch becomes house trained in the end. So
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Oh, no, you're gonna try to leave him in the car, but then he's gonna give you the Ohana speech, and then you're gonna have to bring him to Applebee's, and then he'll wreck the Applebee's.
Yeah, then I feel bad, and it's like, like this thing can talk. Like, how can I leave it in the parking lot?
He could probably hotwire the car anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He might get kicked out of Applebee's like Ricky Bobby's father. Sorry, just watched it. Not bad.
We're gonna do an Adam McKay episode at some point.
It was a good movie. Like, I remember sitting in the theater, like watching this like as a kid, like for the first time, and then I remember like one of like the few moments where like a TV show came after the movie, and it's like I actually wanted to watch a TV show versus like something like, I don't know, what's like a TV show that like I always would skip, like Aladdin or something like that. And I was like, no, get the hell out of here because it's boring as hell. Like this, like Lilo and Stitch movie, like show was actually pretty interesting. Yeah, no, I like it. I laughed like multiple times. Like, yeah, it was dope as hell.
There we go. How about you, Vinny?
It is a movie I really like. It's actually the first time I've watched it since I saw it in middle school, because I remember, it came out this summer after I finished 5th grade. I remember seeing it with my mom, my brother, and my cousin, and we all very much enjoyed it. And then I got the VHS for Christmas. VHSs. I'm really aging myself. So
I use that as a doorstop now.
That's true. So yeah, I remember watching the VHS when I got it, and then I really haven't watched it since then. But you know what? Going off of what Joe said, one thing that I do really like about it is how, it doesn't set out to be like your typical like slapstick, like constantly humorous kids movie that was very common back then. Like, it does have substance to it. Like, it's deep down, it is a movie about relationships, primarily family relationships. Like you had like between Lilo and her sister, and then how they're trying to get over the loss of their parents, and then you have the relationship between Lilo and Stitch, and how that evolves into a really deep friendship. And I have more things to talk about, but that's just my general opinion of it. I did, I watching it again, I liked it. I still like it every bit as much as I did when I saw it for the first time 20 years ago.
Jim, what are your thoughts?
I'll be honest, not Lilo and Stitch was never my favorite of like the Disney movies. At this point, I think Pixar was on kind of a roll. Yeah, Pixar was kind of stealing the thunder from Disney. I remember coming to this movie slowly, the same way I came to like Finding Nemo, where I would like hear quotes from another room, because I had a lot of younger siblings. I would hear quotes like coming from the other room, and then I would hear quotes from my siblings, and they would like throw it into regular conversation. So I don't have a definitive memory of when I actually sat down and watched this movie all the way through for the first time. But I'm going to hop on Vinny's train of thought with the relationships, because watching it again now as an adult, I mean, as an old person, I was probably an adult in a sense when I saw the movie the first time with like younger siblings, but watching it now, I was struck by how Lilo's relationship with her older sister is kind of mirrored on the flip side with Lilo's relationship to Stitch. Like, Stitch presents her with a bunch of problems that she also in turn presents to her sister. So like by getting Stitch by becoming a guardian of Stitch, she's actually growing up a lot and maturing a lot, because she's actually learning how her sister, struggles to take care of her, because she in turn has to take care of Stitch. So that was what that was what I was kind of focusing on when I saw this movie again. But the quotes are still great. My favorite scene was probably the alien attack at the house, just because it's bonkers and ridiculous. But I also like what Joe said about kind of how a kid sees the world. And I was reminded of our Pan's Labyrinth discussion, which was so long ago, but that's going to be an interesting topic to come back to. Whose turn is it?
Absolutely. I was even
Yeah.
thinking not just like Pan's Labyrinth, but I was also imagining like Where the Wild Things Are by Spike Lee. Spike Jones, at
Ooh.
least. You know, I think
Spike Lee's Were the Wild Things.
Spike Lee. That'd be a very different joint.
When's he gonna make that?
Totally do it. Actually. That'd be
He
awesome.
probably will.
He's like, I'm coming for that Oscar. I'm gonna win my Oscar for this.
I would imagine instead of doing Where the Wild Things Are, he's going to take more Little Bear by Maurice Sendak and do that since it's already taken.
That was a great show.
It was a good show.
Now,
Sidebar.
Alex, what are your general thoughts?
I really liked it. I thought it was sweet. I thought it was a really sweet movie. Definitely teared up a few times. I don't watch a lot of animated movies, but whenever I do, I always have a good time with them. The whole Ohana means family, and the idea that they were a broken family, and they were a small and broken family. It really got me in the feels, because I think it's just a really relatable thing. So many people can relate to that. And just kind of love that theme, especially the idea of the sister having to be mom to her younger sister. It's you would just immediately care about them. The beginning of the movie worried me. I was like, uh-oh, like all the space. It reminded me of like Space Jam, like Monstars, like aliens and whatnot. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. But then as soon as they got to Hawaii, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Hawaii, right?
Yep.
As soon as they got to Hawaii, the movie was just amazing from that point. I enjoyed it. I had a great time with it. And it's only 85 minutes.
Without the end credits, it's like barely 80 minutes.
Like an hour,
Oh,
20,
okay.
hour and 15, hour 20 minutes.
Wow. Okay, that's short. That is fast.
Yeah.
So it doesn't overstay its welcome, and it gets its point across. And the music was great. So, yeah.
Guys, I just would like to jump in really quickly. Every time somebody quotes the movie, I'm going to drink. I'm just going to say that right now.
Go for it.
I was going to actually ask a question to Alex, which was going to lead to a quote, because you mentioned you got teary-eyed, and you mentioned the relationship with Nani, the sister, and Lilo. There were 4 times I was rewatching this movie that I did cry. Just saying, as a grown man watching this movie, and one of those times, so they get into a fight because the social worker sees them at their worst, and they get into this big fight, but then they come back and they reconcile, and then the line she says is like, I liked you more as a sister, I don't like you as a mom. Something along those lines. That was powerful.
Yeah.
It's interesting because in a lot, several of the Disney movies before Lilo and Stitch, you would have the main character losing a parent, but now in Lilo and Stitch, it's like what would happen? It asks the question, what does the main character do when both parents are gone?
Doubles down on it. Just like
we're doubling down.
Like when we killed one parent, how about both of them? It's like bam.
But one thing I liked about it was how yes it said that they've lost both their parents, but what I liked about the movie is how it doesn't always linger on it. It establishes the parents are gone. So now what are we gonna do to move Lilo and her sister's relationship forward, both as sister and as sister guardian?
Yeah.
And to just throw my quick general thoughts out, the first time I watched this was actually after college, because I had never actually watched this as a kid. Like, I watched a lot of animated movies as a kid. For some reason, I never watched Lilo and Stitch. And Jess, my fiance, loves Lilo and Stitch and actually sat me down and showed me this. And for the first time, and then watching it again with her, Jess and Lilo have the same energy. Like the way that she's just like dying. It's like that energy, like Lilo as a character is hilarious.
Can I just say I could totally imagine Jess saying my friends need to be punished with the voodoo. Like instead of like the pickle jar, she's taking like the plushies the throwing that in a pickle jar.
So like she's great. Stitch is one of those characters that could easily be so annoying and make you hate them, but you just have so much fun. And it does mix like the science fiction stuff with like some space action and stuff like that. It doesn't go too over the top with it. It sprinkles it throughout. My biggest thing is I love the voice cast in this movie.
Yep.
Because like Tia Carrera as Nani.
That was Tia Carrera. Wow.
Yeah, right out of Wayne's World.
Damn.
Ving Rhames, which Bubbles is probably my favorite character. Like
and then David Ogden Stiers as
Jumbo.
Yes.
Jumbo. And Kevin Michael Richardson is gone to like the really humongous guy. You like 100% know like 50 different characters that Kevin Michael Richardson's voiced. You probably have never seen Kevin Michael Richardson. He is Goro he voices Goro for Mortal Kombat.
Damn,
really?
Yeah. And then even like Jason Scott Lee, who plays like the love interest guy. And I remember him because I used to watch the 90s Jungle Book with him as Mowgli. And it had it also had like John Cleese was in it, Carrie Elwes, Lena Headey. That was like a lot of people in hindsight watching that. And he's also in the Doogie Howser remake that's now like takes place in Hawaii, and he's the dad in it. But like I love the voice cast. Everybody does such a great job with their performances. It's a lot of fun, it's emotional, and I love Elvis. And how they use Elvis in this is a lot of fun. And one of my favorite montages in any animated movie is the one to Devil in Disguise. I just love that so much in this movie because, it's a perfect Elvis song for Lilo and Stitch because, like, he's supposed to be a dog, right?
and how perfect is it that the trailer for the Elvis movie came out just last week?
Mm-hmm. Now, which one? Now we have to ask another question. Which one's the cartoon? The Baz Luhrmann movie or the actual cartoon?
Oh, jeez.
But so I know we talked a lot about some of the themes of the film, and like obviously, I know I joked they doubled down and killed both parents this time, but like obviously, a lot of Disney movies deal with loss, especially of parents, and I think what's so unique about this film is the dynamic that you have at the center of it, because you don't see a whole lot of that kind of dynamic of like the complex, like turning that sister relationship into a complex relationship and having that added stressor of being like, I'm responsible for you. And like you could tell like Nani wasn't prepared for this, nor is it really fair that she has to take on this role, but like life happens and she struggles with it, and Lilo does not make it easy. And oh my god, the way that she plays around with her which Lilo's a little jerk when Bubbles first shows up, and some of the stuff that she was saying, she's like really getting like, and it's interesting because she obviously doesn't get the gravity of the situation. Because
but I also want to add to that. I'll let you finish, but I want to add to that too.
Oh,
sorry.
So you are going to let me? Okay.
I'll let you finish. Sorry.
But like,
Okay, Kanye, go on.
now because like Ving Rhames' character is so serious this whole entire movie, and it brings weight to it because like there's legitimate stakes here, and he makes it very clear from the beginning is like you can lose your sister, and obviously it takes the journey that Lilo goes on to realize how important it is to work with this relationship, because at the beginning she's just doing whatever she can do to mess around with her sister. And it's sad because like we know as an audience, as an adult, that she could legitimately get her sister taken away from her, and like we can feel that, and we know Bubbles means business, even though like that's just like the perfect name for that character because he's so serious, and then he's just like, the name's Bubbles.
And I'm just thinking, Bubbles means business would have been a great catchphrase for him.
Bubbles needs
Damn. Yes.
And just like an actual bubble, it's very fragile, and any moment this family can go pop.
That was poetry.
Yep. That was the intention. That was Chris Sanders' intentions. He actually wrote that in his notes. I looked it up.
You should have just taken credit for it, Joe.
Ask me anything. Hey, did you intentionally call him Cobra Bubbles because of this?
So, Joe, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, because I was thinking about what you were saying about, and it's been brought up a couple times, like Lilo being a bit of a jerk, not understanding the severity of the situation. And it did get me thinking about it in a different way, rewatching the movie, because if you watch the movie, you notice that Nani is kind of a bit of a rebel herself. She's a bit of a screw up herself. And in some ways, she talks back. She's got a bit of a spunk to her, that it does make me think, what if Lilo's personality, because she didn't have maybe she was so young, she didn't really get a chance to see her parents, right? That because she's still learning and she still needs a parent figure, and that being Nani, that personality came because she just watched her sister Nani. Like that, if you even the weird thing she's talking about, like Pudge can control the weather, then you hear Nani talking about how oh, my boss was a vampire who didn't want me to be a part of his legion. I was like, that totally makes sense why she would kind of pick up on that type of stuff, that it does actually make me appreciate it in a sense. It just does like everyone's talking about already, it does relationships so well that it's very unique when you see it like that I kind of want to see that more and more kids movies.
And I appreciate,
I feel like that's
go ahead, Jim.
Plausible is what I was going to say. It's super plausible, that a younger sibling would take after the older sibling,
right? Not even intentionally, just kind of just because you notice the little things, they build up.
Yeah. I think you guys could probably have a lot to say about her behavior too, but let me throw it back to Shane for now.
No, the one thing that I was going to say is I thought that, what I appreciate about these characters is they're believably weird. Because, half the things Lilo did in this movie, I'm pretty sure my fiance does.
Even the voodoo.
Okay, real talk, guys. I grew up with two sisters, okay? They had the Barbie dolls, and a couple of those Barbie dolls were destroyed and mangled up. And sometimes I would take those dolls and I would create backstories for those dolls. So when Lilo would have her doll...
Good seeing y'all. Have a good night.
I'm just saying, half the stuff Lilo was doing, I don't know.
I feel you.
My point is, it's you could have precocious kids in movies, and sometimes it's no kid acts like this. Lilo's weird. People act like that weird.
Yeah.
And it's believable and it's fun. And I think that's what makes it so endearing and enjoyable. And then, you have a bunch of aliens. So, aliens.
Aliens.
So it just, I appreciate the fact that it's so very human and connects so well, and then it is still able to deliver on a bunch of science fiction action and fun like that too, which is hard to be able to do that. And I think a lot of movies fail with that, and this one succeeds.
Right. I actually, I mean, the word that just came to my mind was when you guys were talking was this idea of you're talking about the sister, right? You know, and the younger sister picking up on what her older sister does. And, you know, when you have such a vacancy of the two parents being gone, you can't help but pick up, you know, and attract and absorb these things that you're seeing. I think the alien element of it with Stitch also made me think of Superman a little bit, because Superman is an alien. And then, you know,
well, there is that one moment in the montage in the end when he's doing the laundry and he puts on that red cape.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't notice that.
I'm assuming that wasn't a Superman reference, but I mean, it is a funny coincidence that
it definitely was. After all the stuff we've already talked about,
I would say it's plausible. It does send up a lot of tropes to past sci-fi movies. I was also going to say too, though, and I wanted to get everyone's impression on this, because this is where a couple of my criticisms come in, and they're not huge criticisms, but it's like, you know, the weaponry, you know, it's a kid's movie. You're not supposed to have blood. You're not supposed to have like big explosions, any severe violence. But the way they kind of caricaturized most of the violence and the explosions, do you think it was a little too kid friendly? Like they didn't use like certain sound effects they were using could have worked, but I felt like the ones that they did use made it seem a little too light, a little too fluffy, right? I don't know. That's just my general thought. Maybe I'm so jaded.
I didn't really give like that much notice to the sound effects, so I can't really comment on that.
Or even like the guns themselves, they look like water guns. You know, I feel like take a step back, maybe make them like, you know, actual color.
I think maybe that was just to maybe just like be consistent with like the playfulness of like the sci-fi tone of the story.
And like, so
like, we're parental guidance, we're not PG-13.
The movie does, we talk about violence so much on this podcast, don't we? Like, I think that's a legitimate criticism of, like, say you were a young parent, right, and your kid's watching Lilo and Stitch. She beats up the other kids in her class.
She bites
Stitch
one of
destroys,
them.
Stitch destroys San Francisco. They shoot each other with lasers and plasma cannons and things, and they burn the house down, and they blow holes in the walls of the house.
Now wait a minute. He destroys a model of San Francisco.
Correct. I do have a thought on this though. So when a kid is missing those big figures in her life, right? Like mom and dad are gone, and she's angry about it, and she's confused. Like, it's totally understandable that she would act out violently because she has these emotional, you know, connections that have been severed. There's trauma there, right?
Yeah.
And how did her parents die? Was it a violent
car crash?
Or something?
It was a rainy day, and they.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Car crashed. Just random life situation.
Yeah, kids understand a lot more than you think they do. So like, she might have absorbed that her parents died in a violent way, and this may be going way too deep, but like, I think it's normal for people, not even just kids, to act out violently when they're like trying to work through a trauma they don't understand, you know.
And they also indicated that it's a partially abandonment when Stitch leaves, right? And she says, you know, most people always go, right? Like, that's her way of coping with her parents' loss, is that she sees it as like they just left, you know, and sometimes people just go, right? That in itself is that's tough, right? When you're that age and you're seeing it that way.
Yeah.
And she's pissed off about it.
Yeah.
Which, like, I still think it's a valid criticism that the movie treats violence like super lightly, but I don't know.
And to be fair, I'm thinking about it now too, because I kind of mentioned it before with Cobra Bubbles, where like this is mostly like what's Lilo seeing the world like. I mean, in some ways, you know, a lot of crazy stuff is happening, but in a sense, it's like a kid over imagining certain things, like playing up the alien aspect of things. Like that's why I always imagine like if they ever did, because they were planning on doing like a live action reboot of this, like most Disney adaptations.
They are.
Yeah,
that's
they are planning on doing that, but a part of me would hope if like they would, I don't know if it would be possible to do it that way. Maybe like if they could make it in a way where like she's imagining this animal to be an animal, like an alien, but in actuality it really isn't. And sometimes the movie will play around with the idea that it's maybe just a dog that she's imagining is an alien, right?
So I don't think they're gonna go there.
I know.
They're giant, like $150 million live action remakes of their animated movies. But that is a bold and interesting film. That could be potentially a more interesting film.
I just think that's why in my mind I would imagine like a Where the Wild Things Are, Spike Jonze type version of Lilo and Stitch.
They're gonna get Spike Jonze to direct it.
I hope so. I would give my left kidney, I would give my left nut, excuse my language, for that to happen.
But David Lynch.
I'll actually sound like Stitch by all the body parts are gonna be given away.
I thought you said your left titty at first, and I was like, you should have just said that.
So
that is. How do you know that's not what I said?
David Lynch directs Lilo and Stitch.
Well, I was gonna say, like David Lynch, he did direct a movie once for Disney. He directed A Straight Story with Richard.
Oh, that's
Farnsworth.
right.
So he is part of the Disney family. He is in their stable of directors.
So what you're saying is you're gonna have a movie where Lilo is traveling to Stitch on a tricycle for 2 hours and a half that's the movie, is watching Lilo on her tricycle traveling through Hawaii on her little tricycle to go see Nani.
And then Lilo walks out behind a diner, out behind like the dumpsters, and is like attacked by this crazy, like creepy creature. Right out of Mulholland Drive. So,
but you know, I want to talk about the animation for a little bit, because one thing I liked about it was like and I don't know if they've done this with most of their other movies, but I know they did it for Tarzan a couple years before. I love the watercolor paint backgrounds to the town and the vegetation, it just makes like the way how they do that, but then they just have the characters more traditionally animated, it makes the characters stand out in their own way, and then the watercolors of the background they stand out in their own way.
This is one of the first movies, I think, after I did read an interview where they said that this is the first movie after Dumbo that was done with watercolor backgrounds, and then after that they were using gouache paint and different acrylic mediums, and then eventually digital paint.
Well,
so
I could have sworn Tarzan used watercolors.
Well, they actually they did something completely. They partially did, but I also think they did something else called and they used it on the movie short paper got. It's basically like they found a way to make 3D meshes out of traditional drawings. So basically they were able to create jungles. That's why Tarzan was able to travel through all the trees, and they looked like they were hand drawn, because they were hand drawn, but the computer would actually recreate the drawings to make it look like 3D meshes.
Okay. Yeah, because that aspect in Tarzan, it's very similar to like Treasure Planet and Atlantis. They use a lot of that. And this was like that weird time, because this, and like thinking of animation, this is a weird time for animation, especially for Disney, because it was that like trying to mix computer and hand drawn.
It was that transitional period.
Yeah, because like you had Dinosaur, which was 3D animation, which that was such a weird, because that came out in like 2000, right?
Yeah.
That was such a weird come out right after.
I know they were
I mean, it
animated
was-
by the Jim Henson Company, and they all wore regular
Well-
clothes and made sitcom jokes.
Well,
That's the one we're
well,
talking
I mean-
about, right?
Well, I mean, I haven't seen Dinosaur in a long time, but I remember the animation like being pretty striking for that movie.
It was.
I haven't watched that in a long time, but like, because at some point they just said no more like 2D animation, and it's all 3D animation, except Bob's Burgers, the movie coming back with 2D animation for Disney.
Can't wait.
But the thing is, it's like, this is such a beautiful looking movie,
It
and
is.
it makes me miss hand-drawn animation a lot. And this is
Wow.
why I love Cartoon Saloon, and I'll keep watching all of like Secret of Kells and Song of the Sea and stuff like that.
And you know what? Like not to discount like movies that are 3D animated, because obviously a lot of hard work goes into it. But I mean, when you think back of like the 2D animated movies and like some of the behind the scenes videos you would see from them of all the drawings they would do for the movies, and how they would color them, and like just make and just really make like the colors pop and everything. Like, I mean, it really was like 2D animation really was like a whole other level of the hard work that went into making like such a movie.
Well, and I think for a film that takes place in Hawaii and really trying to like bring the beauty out of the setting, I think the hand-drawn animation does a lot.
Yeah.
For this movie.
Yeah, I wanted to say before we go into another topic, there's a cut of this beautiful ocean, like night shot of the ocean. You know what I'm talking about, Shane?
Mhm.
And it's only like 3 seconds or less before they go back into the house. They have a scene back in the house. The amount of work that must have gone into just that one shot. There's a little bit of movement maybe in the trees, and I'm not sure if you can see the water move, but I as soon as I saw it, I went, man, I want to have that as a screensaver or something. Like, it was just really beautiful, and that must take a lot of work just for that one shot.
Absolutely.
Gorgeous.
No, the work really pays off when you watch the movie. There's also something else I want to bring up. I don't know if anybody else thought about this too. So there were a couple things that were re-edited in this movie because it was considered too risky at the time it came out. So you guys remember the scene where they're fighting the Gantu with the plane, and they're flying through Hawaii. Now the original cut was that instead of an actual spaceship, they hijack a commercial Boeing plane.
Yeah.
When did this movie come out?
2002.
2002.
2002.
And not only that, they weren't flying through the mountains like in the final cut. They were flying through a city with skyscrapers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it really hit me rewatching it again, because if you look at the interior of this spaceship, I was like, this is a Boeing plane.
Oh, really?
Like, you look at it, like you see like the opening door, you see the front of the spaceship. It still looks like a plane, but they made it look like a spaceship.
Sure.
That is interesting.
It is.
There's a lot of films that got affected by that kind of stuff.
Well, it's like when the first trailer for Spider-Man came out.
Yes.
You had him catching the two guys in a web between the twin towers, but then after what happened, they understandably they had to pull that trailer from theaters.
Not only that, too, if you rewatch the movie, so apparently that was supposed to be the introduction scene for Spider-Man to come on screen.
Oh, you know what? I think I remember reading that.
Yeah, because if you rewatch the movie again, they'll still show, if you go frame by frame, when you see Spider-Man show up with the full mask, you'll still see the Twin Towers in the reflection in his lens.
Yeah.
So it's like they couldn't quite fix that in post at that time. but it's like you could tell that was something that they, because of what happened with the Twin Towers, like we can't have that.
Yeah.
We can't have that happen.
You know, it's so interesting because, you know, animated movies take so long to be able to put together and everything. Obviously, all the different kinds of iterations of things that films go through, and like, you know, stories like, you know, Shrek, they had to re-record all the dialogue for Shrek after Chris Farley passed away, and replaced him with Mike Myers, and just like, you know, it's so interesting.
I didn't know Mike Myers was a replacement for Chris Farley.
I had no idea.
If you go on YouTube,
Yes.
look up Chris Farley cut footage, they'll have a storyboard animatic with Chris Farley's voice as Shrek.
Holy
You're
moly.
welcome.
That's insane.
Yeah. And it's very interesting because it's like, you know, big things like that happen all the time with films, and like you have to go back to making big changes, and like sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Like I know they had to redo, I think they reshot the whole entire finale of the X-Men Dark Phoenix movie because it wound up being too much like another finale of another superhero movie, and they're like,
was it?
Maybe they should have just reshot the whole movie. Yeah.
Was
This is Simon Kinberg's last hurrah.
What was the original ending of Beam in the Sky finale?
No, so apparently what it turned out to be was like Civil War.
Okay.
So then they're like, oh crap.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But you know what?
Damn,
now
I
with the
wanna see that.
multiverse and
I wanna see
everything,
that
wouldn't
ending.
they?
So like now I'm wondering, like, did they have like
Yeah.
a giant fight between like the Brotherhood of Mutants and the X-Men in an airport? And just be like, oh no.
Well, Shane, it doesn't matter because no one saw Dark Phoenix anyway.
Yeah.
That
I
is
was also going to say,
fair.
too, like, you know, with the multiverse and everything, how do you know they shouldn't have just kept that and just said, oh, it's just a ripple in the multiverse of just things just repeating themselves?
That could be a whole entire other video, but we're not going to get into that.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
But Joe, I appreciate you bringing that up because that's a very interesting thing when you see little things like that in a
Mhm.
film, and like was for the best. And
was.
like honestly, I don't know if I would like the finale being like a big over the city kind of thing, because like I feel like most of this film is disconnected from like major society,
Mm-hmm.
and like the aliens are always on the periphery. Like they're never like right there in like the populace of people. So I think that would have been weird in like the finale, like making it that big, because you know it's still clandestine at the end, because you know they're making deals at the end of like, hey, the whole mosquito thing, hilarious.
It was pretty funny. It's like they're an endangered.
That's funny.
We're not gonna. Yeah.
And honestly, I thought so. I think I own. Oh, this is probably like the third time I've watched Lilo and Stitch, and rewatching it this time, I'm like, that's funny that they picked mosquitoes because, you know, like to humans, they're everywhere. And it's just like, they're definitely not endangered. But the fact that it was an inside joke in the movie at the end when Bubbles is like, we convinced them that mosquitoes were endangered species. I'm like, yes. Because like, if you were going to be like, oh, crap, we need to save Earth and tell them one of these creatures is an endangered species, what would you do? The most obvious thing obviously would be an obnoxious insect that there's like millions of them. And you know, it's a fun joke. It's like either that or cockroaches, I would have assumed would have been that, but like the mosquito thing's just funny.
I feel like if they went with cockroaches, they would realize just how insane they are. Surviving nuclear bombs and all.
Yeah, they're not an endangered species. They don't need any help.
One other joke I liked in this movie was how when like when people vacation in Hawaii and like like the hotel staff might like put a lei around their neck. It's like, it's like it's meant to be like a relaxing thing for the guests. And like
Yes.
I liked the joke in like the nighttime scene when Lilo and Stitch are in her bedroom, and like he's going like a little crazy, and then she puts the lei on him, and then he like kind of just like falls on his back and like relaxes.
That is so true. Because like I'm thinking about stuff. Is there like a trans property? It's like, but then when you say it, it's like, yeah, it just makes sense. Like when you're on vacation, what's the thing? You get the lei, and then you're on vacation.
And like that's definitely so. Like that's not an overt like adult joke, but kids aren't gonna get that joke.
No.
Adults will and be like, and that's just like a small little thing. Because like it doesn't have to all be like Shrek, where there's just like dick jokes everywhere. So this takes like,
they literally look at a castle and like he's compensating for something. Like they literally
phallic symbols everywhere. And so like,
and I love how casual they even put it in Shrek 2, where it's just like no punchline, no like silence or anything. It's just like a casual line they slipped in there.
There's no casualness. Like everything's just casual. Just like
I think we. I'm thinking now. What if we had like a Shrek Austin Powers crossover?
And Shrek is Fat Bastard.
Oh my god, it would be like Implosion to have Fat Bastard talk to Shrek. Oh god.
So,
but
next time I pick, we're definitely watching Shrek.
I will condone that. I am okay with that.
But I guess at this point, like Matt, I know you haven't said a whole lot. Is there anything else that you wanted to add about Lilo and Stitch?
I like the idea of there being a movie where like the whole message is that like the family that you're born in can be like the family that you choose can also be just as like important as the family that you're born in. I feel like that's like, I don't know, this is like a really like awesome, like wholesome kind of thing. And I feel like that, like a part of me wants to say that I don't really see that a lot, but then I don't really see like a lot of kids movies usually. So that maybe that might be something that's like usually kind of like pops up like a theme, but I don't know, it's just like a really like awesome kind of thing. Cause like at the end when they're like showing kind of like like their new normal with the holidays and how they're like just like spending time with each other. It's just like a really nice thing. And I like the fact that the I guess the CPS worker was like fixing their roof. That's also, I don't know why I needed to add that, but it was like, why do you?
And I appreciate that you bring that up, Matt, the like family dynamic, because like, it's just casual at the end, like half this family's human, half of it's aliens. And it's just like, loving family now. And it is a perfect setup for a TV show. Because like, they're going to have all kinds of crazy antics with a whole bunch of like half your family's aliens and dealing with like day-to-day stuff. So I'm not surprised like the Lilo and Stitch show actually turned out to be like a fun time and an enjoyable show.
Oh, it got really in there where like basically each episode it was a monster of the week where like alien, Stitch was 626, so there had to be like 625 aliens, and each different alien was like a different setup for a different story. So I mean, more goofy stuff, just entertaining stuff. They even had it tell me, I want you guys to know what you think about this. They even had crossovers where the characters from Recess showed up in one episode.
What?
They had an episode where the cast of Kim Possible showed up. They had an episode where the Proud Family went to Hawaii. And I'm almost positive, I think the fourth show was Fillmore. No, I don't think it was Fillmore. I think it was shoot, I forgot which one it was.
So what you're saying is Disney was doing like universe, like cinematic universe type stuff.
Oh yes.
Like even before the MCU.
Oh, Jake Long, American Dragon. Yes, that's what they were doing. It's on YouTube.
Interesting.
It's so interesting.
All those Disney Channel shows based off of all their Disney movies, it's such an interesting thing. And you could probably watch all of them on Disney Plus, which is where we watch. Most of us probably watch this. I own Lilo and Stitch, so I just watched it on DVD. But I guess, does anybody have any last thoughts?
Really random. I wanted to bring up another thing. I wanted to ask everyone's impression on this. So having Gantu be like the bad guy who just captures Lilo, is everybody okay with that? Because for me, I was okay with the movie not really having a central antagonist per se. Like, it didn't really make sense to me that he would capture Lilo, right? Like, he's supposed to be like on a mission to capture Stitch, but like
he
just
said, "I got you a snack too."
Yeah, but
So like
I
I'm
don't know.
assuming he's thinking like Stitch is like this. Well, that's the assumption. Stitch is this like diabolical creature, and that's
There's your
probably
drink.
gonna eat a little girl.
That's a good point. But I mean, he did kind of allude to the fact that he was going to eat her. I don't know. Like Gantu was going to eat her, like he was going to get hungry on the trip or something.
Yeah. You know what? You know what? I feel like, I mean, for what he was, Gantu was, he was a fun character to have
Fun.
around. But you know what? Even if it was really just, who are the two aliens that
Jumbo and Pleakley.
Yeah, you know what? Like even if it was just those two like hunting for Stitch, and then like at the end, you keep like the wild like shootout that they have at Lilo's home between the two of them and Stitch, and like even if you want to like maybe prolong that for a little bit just to like add a couple minutes, like if that was even if that was the finale, that I feel like that would have been enough, because like you said, the movie, it really didn't.
It doesn't need a villain. It doesn't need like an antagonist. It's just life.
Yeah, because like before the end, before the end of the movie, like Gantu is really not in it that much. Like maybe like 5 minutes at most, but before he comes back at the end.
Yeah.
I kind of felt bad for Gantu for a second at the end, because I felt like he got kind of a bad shake. But like thinking about it now, he made it personal.
He kidnapped a little girl. Like
he made it really personal. So he did take kind of a big bad turn at the end of the movie.
Like you make sense. Like he's trying to capture a prisoner that escapes the ship. I mean, he is going to act the way that he's going to act, but like at the very end when he's capturing Lilo, it just, I don't know, just kind of like, I felt like they could have been reworked, guys.
Not gonna lie, after you just how you frame that, it's like, he was just a guy trying to capture a prisoner who got away. Can you imagine if Tommy Lee Jones voiced him? It's just like, I just want
family. Like, I
don't care. Oh, see, in an alternate universe, Tommy Lee Jones was in Lilo and Stitch.
I want to see
like
that happen.
Intergalactic,
actually.
like U.S. Marshal. So there you go.
Well, he was in Men in Black, so aliens.
There you go. That only makes
confirmed.
that connection even bigger. Yeah. Yeah.
And just to throw this out here, I'm looking on like IMDb. You have Lilo and Stitch. You have Lilo and Stitch the series. Lilo and Stitch 2. Stitch has a glitch. There's like Game Boy.
Lilo and Stitch.
Lilo and Stitch's Island of Adventure. There's like 4 different video games.
Was Lilo and Stitch ever in a Kingdom Hearts game?
No, unfortunately.
Number
That's a missed
4.
opportunity.
But so I guess at this point, any final thoughts, things that anybody wants to bring up in conclusion about Lilo and Stitch?
I said all I had to say.
Of the parents, it reminds me of the Iron Giant, where it's kind of like, there's like a dead parent situation going on, but we're not gonna like do this to you. We're just gonna like reference it like really quick, and then that's it. like when I was watching it on TV, like I actually had to like rewind it because I didn't even see like the parents' faces, like they were like on the screen like for that short amount of time. I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, it immediately reminded me of that. I was like, oh crap.
Also, another great 2D animation
Yep.
movie from that era.
1999.
Speaking of really good animation too, if memory serves me right, when this was nominated for the Academy Awards, it lost to another movie. Could you guess what that movie was?
Spirited Away.
Spirited Away. How do you guys feel about that competition?
Oh hell yeah!
Well,
Spirited Away definitely.
Disney had 3 movies that year for best animated film. It had Spirited Away, Lilo and Stitch, and Treasure Planet.
Yep.
Wait, did you guys just say Disney made Spirited Away?
No. Miyazaki, they produced it.
Oh.
They distributed it to America.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they got Lilo to play the main character, the voice actors.
Wait, and what was it? Wasn't she also like that same year? Wasn't she also Samara in The Ring?
Yep. That kid was on a fire.
Oh, so you're just laughing because the poster's just like a pig. That's her family.
Just a girl standing next to a pig, knowing nothing about the movie.
And out of context, that is so minimal of like anything that movie's really about. It's like you just look at the poster. Spirited Away is about a girl and a pig.
Spirited Away.
Which, see, this was like the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature was still in its infancy at this point, because this was literally only the second year, because Shrek won.
First one. Gonna say that
Shrek specifically beat Monsters Inc. and Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius.
Yep.
Who were all of them were animated into the Academy Awards ceremony.
I remember.
Oh
that.
God, it was so
Had
crazy.
shots of them sitting in seats waiting to see who won the award.
They used the animation where Mike Wazowski finds out that he wasn't in the commercial, like his face got blurred. So when he lost, he was going. I was like, oh crap, that's a great animation bit they got right there.
Yeah, so for a film that was in like an iffier time in Disney, this was definitely one of their gems at the time. And I think it's a lot of fun. It's a nice movie, has a good message, balances that human element and the science fiction. And we got Elvis. Just
Elvis.
Cherry on top.
You may as well say, for a movie with aliens, wouldn't you say it's probably the most human?
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
More human than human.
Get out of here with that.
In that respect, it has competition with E.T.
Yeah. But sometimes when you take a trope, I mean, listen, tropes are good. We have tropes for a reason. Like a lot of the great, like even this movie too. Lilo and Stitch had one of my least favorite tropes, and you know how much I hated this trope in Moonfall when a character says I can't swim, right? I screamed how much I hated that. I was like, fuck you, movie, for throwing in that trope. but when Lilo and Stitch has a character flaw in that Stitch's biological structure is that he can't swim, and he's on Hawaii, an island surrounded by water, it actually makes that trope work in a sense that it doesn't really feel like that.
A fun gag too, where they're like, "Oh, he's gonna fall on a planet full of water. He's gonna
exactly."
So I'm realizing now, summer 2002 had two very different movies with aliens who couldn't handle water.
Oh, was it the M. Night Shyamalan movie?
Yep.
Signs.
You know, I remember watching that movie with my dad, and I was like, I looked at my dad at that point. I was like, you realize they came to a planet that's mostly covered in water.
So
why did they do that?
We can have that on another show because I will argue with you about that. I love Signs, and
no, I like it.
I do too. When I'm passing through PA, I know where I'm going.
No. You know what? With Signs, does it have issues? Yes. Is it tense and pretty scary at times. Yes.
It is.
We'll talk about this when we wrap
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
because It has nothing to do with Lilo and Stitch, except it does have aliens who have problems with water. So that is indeed an actual comparison. Because you all thought we were going to talk about signs tonight when we were talking about Lilo and Stitch.
Nope.
But this is a fun conversation. I hope you all tune in next time when we do our next
Sorry.
Oscar episode, where we're going to watch Ordinary People. And it's going to be a lot darker conversation, I feel like, and a lot sadder. So bring your tissues and come next time. But thanks, Joe, Matt, Vinnie, Jim, Alex, and Shane. Thank you all for always tuning in and supporting the Development Hell podcast.